Hey everyone, it's Wednesday and you know what that means. In our expert series, we bring back your favorite guest, Anna Kelly. How you doing?
I'm great today, Michael. How are you?
I'm doing really, really well. I think today we're going to focus on something that I know it's important to you and I. We both like helping. And I want to focus on that investor who's excited, energetic. You know who I'm talking about, that person that will spend 4 hours, that won't sleep. They'll just be inundated either on Bigger Pockets or YouTube University and do nothing, right? So I want to talk about that person, what we see in them, what we recommend, how we help them, and then we'll transition to a second topic in a minute. But you know who I'm talking about, right?
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Lots of people that are excited to think about real estate, but maybe that never actually take the leap. They
Mhm.
just think, watch, dream, but then don't take action, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I call them the shooting stars. I mean, I've seen them so frequently. I can almost see them vibrate when they come up and talk to me at the old meetups or they reach out to me on the YouTube channel. And you can just sense almost like it's almost like they have to do something, right? There's
Yeah.
like that. And what I've come to tell them is um, they're doing it wrong. I mean, I used to try to be nice, but it doesn't get me anywhere. What I now tell people, if you're spending 2 or 3 hours a day digging into real estate investing, I believe you're doing it wrong, because real estate is not the stock market. You can't find, that thing, that market, that variable that you can execute today to find an outsized value add or gap, right? It doesn't trade that way. It moves in cycles. I just did a video yesterday that I would much rather you see you spend 2 hours a week for a year than, I don't know, 200 hours in a month, because real estate is cyclical. It takes time to see how a market changes. So I don't know if you agree with that, but I've stopped being nice. I'm like, you're doing it wrong. Stop it. Stop wasting time. Have a better quality of life, but do it consistently longer.
Yeah, I think that's the key. I mean, I do think you need consistent education,
Mhm.
making sure that you're, rather than mindlessly watching, Netflix
Mhm.
or, network news for a third hour of the day. It's
Right.
like you can take little bits of chunk and be better with your time. And if
Mhm.
you can block off chunks of time for learning what you want to do, and then block off chunks of time, double or triple that amount of time for doing
Yeah.
and executing what you're learning, that'll keep you constantly thinking about real estate, constantly thinking about whatever dreams and goals you have that you think real estate is, basically the vehicle to get there, but not just thinking about it,
Mhm.
but actually putting it into action. So, turn off the television. If you really are serious about changing your life and getting involved in real estate and buying rental properties, for example,
Mhm.
you know, take some of that time that you think you don't have, put it on your calendar for an hour a day, an
Mhm.
hour every other day, 30 minutes a day, whatever you can do,
Mhm.
and give an equal time to say, now I'm going to take exactly what I learned and I'm going to do something with it that's going to move the needle and move me forward. That consistency day in and day out
Yeah.
is what really yields results.
Yeah, for me, again, and I built my online course around this idea. Is, again, I typically speak to full-time professionals, right? That's kind of who I was and what my book is, and it's who I attract
Yeah.
with this YouTube channel. So what I tell them is you should spend 20 to 30 minutes a day, 7 days a week, right? If you want to do six, I'll give you, even God took Sunday off, right? So fine, 6 days a week. Um, but that's what I want you to do. And I mean, if you do 6 days a week times 20 minutes, that's 2 hours. That's
Right.
all it should take, is pick a market, get laser focused. Because what happens when you spend 2 hours a day is you're not focused. You get distracted and you go down rabbit holes that are non-productive, right? You
Right.
come to me or you because you want to be a buy and hold investor. That's Anna and Michael's story. But then you're on YouTube University and you see our video and maybe you see a second one together, and then something else pops up and you see some flipping thing in Tennessee. When did you want to flip and when are you going to Tennessee? I mean, and then next thing you know, you look up, it's 1 a.m. and you got to go to work the next day.
Yeah. That's why I think it's so important. And I know you talk about this, and I talk about this with my students as well. If you just think, I want to get into real estate, and you just try to absorb everything you can about real estate, you'll chase a zillion rabbit trails because there's so
Yes.
many different ways. So you have to know, what are my financial goals? What am I trying to accomplish that I think real estate can buy me? And then what niche specifically, given where I am today, how much time I have, what my skills are, how much money I have, what niche can I go and buy a property in tomorrow, a week from now, a few months from now, and move the needle to that financial goal. So if your financial goal is, I need more cash flow, Michael, like most of us when we start buying rentals, it should be buy a rental property. So if you're looking for monthly cash flow, don't go look for flips. Don't go look for beach properties, you know, unless it's like a killer rental property. But you're going to look for really a rental property that's going to give you some income, that's going to be somewhat close to where you are if you want any active participation, or if you want it totally passive in a market that's growing and going to do well. Right. And once you have that framework, you should stay in that box until you reach your financial goals or get really close before you start thinking about, oh, what about self-storage and mobile home parks and all these things. Most people that I see scattered, it's because, Michael, they really don't know what it is they want, what their financial goals are, and then how real estate might help them to get there. So they need to hone in on that first, so that then they spend the time doing the right research so that they can move the needle for the right next step or acquisition, like buying a rental property.
Yeah, let's talk about that. Again, you and I most often speak to people that are or want to be landlords or the cash flow. So I think it even goes beyond. Once you make that decision, okay, you found Anna or Michael. What I want you to do is I want you to pick your market. And that's another thing, right? If even if you come to me and say, I want to be a buy and hold landlord, one rental at a time speaks to me, yada, yada, yada. Yeah. Then I see people spending gobs of time going, oh, what is the market, right? That's not the question. You have to learn the skill of evaluating a market and evaluating deals. That's the skill to learn. Then you can take that to any market. To think you can learn Huntsville, Alabama, Nashville, Tennessee, Detroit, Michigan, Las Vegas, Nevada, and Fresno is beyond stupid. You just can't. Right. Certainly in the beginning.
100%. Yeah. I mean, if you think I want some cash flow, I want to own rental property.
Yep.
Learn how to evaluate rental property. Yep. Evaluate rents and sale prices in the markets that you're interested in. Evaluate whether a market is a healthy market that's going to yield long-term success, and let's say it's for cash flow. And then once you know that those are the three things you do, like you say, you can do it anywhere, but you've got to pretty quickly hone in on, do I want to own where I can touch it and feel it, or do I want to own from afar? And once you do that, narrow yourself down to no more than like 2 markets to begin with. Otherwise, again, you'll be all over the place. So, you know, we've talked about Fresno, for example. Well, if you're in LA, you might not invest in LA, but you might go to Fresno. Maybe. Pick another target market that's, you know, somewhat nearby. If you say, I don't care where it is, maybe you go to the South where you're going to get, you know, cheaper prices on property and make, you know, higher cash flow, but you got to be willing to fly. But pick your 2 markets and become laser focused on learning the market. What do homes sell for? What do homes rent for? Is there more supply and demand, or more demand than supply? Are people coming, or are people leaving? Are jobs around? Are there good schools? Are there crime, you know, high crime in the area? Those are the primary things that you look for. And if you look for that and get to know that the pockets and your 2 target markets that you really like, then that hones you in on, okay, this is where I'm going. These are the markets I've selected. Then it becomes, let's learn how to analyze deals, make sure we don't overpay for something here. It's going to meet the cash on cash returns that we need, total returns that we need. And then you spend all your time looking for properties, figuring out how to take them down, building those relationships to find those properties. Worry about how you property manage later. Worry about how you asset manage later. Spend most of your time learning your market, analyzing deals, finding a deal that meets your financial objectives, then pick up and go, okay, got something under contract. It's time to start learning about property management and asset management and tenant, you know, but you can do it slowly and spend more of your time up front on the analysis and finding the deal and less of your time, you know, on these other things.
Yeah, I'm glad you put it that way, because that's exactly how I designed my online course, because I saw so many people wasting time. So what I've told them to do is, like, we'll just use Fresno because it's the example I know the most depth on. What I tell them, Fresno, and don't come to me and saying I'm going to buy in Fresno as a beginner. Fresno's 1 million people. That's too big. What I want to hear from people, and what I tell them to do in step 1 of my courses, you're going to pick a zip code. But then what I want you to do is I want you to put criteria around that zip code that produces an active listing of somewhere between 20 and 40 active listings. That's the criteria that I want you to beat on for the next 75 to 90 days, every day. Because what happens when you do that is the market has a pulse. You start to see what comes on, what comes off, what has a price decrease, what goes in, what gets sold in 24 hours, right? And you can't tell that if you're not online. And again, folks, I'm talking about exactly what I did 20 years ago.
Exactly.
I didn't have any special access. I just put in search criteria and I looked every day at 6 a.m., right? 6:15. And I built an Excel spreadsheet because I didn't have access to the MLS. So I just built a spreadsheet. And then I would say, oh, look, this came on yesterday. It's already gone. Well, that probably means it's a hot property, right? Well, what was it, right? Then this one's still sitting and had a price drop. Why did it have? Oh, look at that. It's on a busy street. And I just started taking notes. Yeah. So that's step 1. And like you said, step 2 is now you start doing math. What's the return? Because I truly believe the only question an investor has to ask is, what is a good or great deal in my market? But it starts with that laser focus. And then once you do it for 90 days, then you can start to spend. Now I can scan Fresno in 20 minutes. But I couldn't do that in the beginning because I wouldn't have known that the Mayfair is different than the West Side, and West Side is different than the Tower, and Tower is different than Clovis. I mean, it would have blown my mind.
Right.
So that's what it takes for folks is focus and consistent effort over time. That's people don't want that to be the right answer, but it is the right answer. I'm sorry.
Right. Exactly. And you look at, the other things, just to add to what you're saying, is just like you look at what are things selling for, you look at what are things renting for. And I create a spreadsheet, and I have my students create a spreadsheet that has every property in your market that comes for rent that looks like what you want to own.
Exactly.
You want to look at, when did it get listed for rent? When did it come off? How much are they asking for it? How updated was it? Did it have parking? Did it have laundry? Did it have a dishwasher? What kind of condition it is? And you basically track all of that. And when you have 50 to 100 properties on your list, you can be like, wow, I really know that a 1-bedroom that's redone is really going to get me $900. And if it looks like junk today, it might be $600. So maybe I buy one that rents for $6 and I turn it into something that rents for $9.
Exactly.
So, that's how you check what your metrics are and the numbers when you see deals. Are these numbers for rents realistic? Well, I've learned the sales prices. I've learned the rental prices. I know the price point of home I need to buy that's going to have enough renters also looking for that property. So that's really important too. If you're looking in an area where homes are $300,000, but the rents are going to be $2,000, you're not going to make a profit. But if they're $300,000 and the rents are $3,000 or $4,000 or $5,000, then maybe you're going to, make a profit. So you've got to kind of know that, rent to price ratio. And if you see that a market suddenly is not giving you what you want, that's when you say, okay, this isn't the right market for me right now. Let's go to market number 2. And then let's just keep checking back on this other market that I'm really interested in. But you might have to pick 2 because it's very cyclical and one market may not do great when you want something. So, but the process is the same. So once you do the process you learn any market, and you just keep doing it one rental at a time.
Yeah, that's the key. Process is the same. That's why I focus on, I don't care what market you pick, because what I'm trying to teach you out of the gate is the skill. Yeah. And that's why when people ask, I'm in California, right? So they say, I want to invest in the Midwest. Well, I say, are you close to a market that you could go see? Because if you can see it, touch it, feel it without having a plane ticket, it's better. So what I often tell people in California is go learn a market close to you. Because again, I know you're not going to buy there. I know California is not a landlord friendly, blah, 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 but you're not listening. I'm trying to teach you a skill, just like a golf swing. And you're really, really bad at it at the beginning. But if we can teach you the skill, that golf swing will transition to any golf course across the country. So give me 90 days. I want to teach you the skill, and then go nuts. Go anywhere you want.
Right. And you have
awesome.
to be patient, just like with golf, you really have to be patient. I mean, when I decided to start buying in Ocean City, Maryland, I literally spent 3 full days with the realtor looking at properties, and I spent 9 months doing market research, looking at deals, being patient to make sure that I didn't overpay
Yeah.
and that I could find a deal that I knew was good going in. I had multiple exit strategies, which is important.
Yes.
I knew what I could rent them for, and it took 9 months. Other markets, when I first bought my first property and, right outside of Hershey, I had just moved here and I was
Yeah.
like, oh, there's some 4-unit buildings for
Look at
sale.
that one.
Okay. What do they sell for? What do they rent for? And I went to the bank and said, can I get a loan? And I bought it.
Yeah.
So it's like, it really doesn't take that much time if there's inventory. That's
Right.
what you're looking for. But at certain times in the market, there may not be. So you just have to be patient, stick with the process,
Mm-hmm.
and just keep doing it a little bit every day. And you are going to find a property, you will find a rental, and you'll
Yeah.
make steps toward what you want to do.
Yeah. So now I want to transition to kind of the second part is I think you and I have both seen students that we help mentor, advise, be wildly successful, and then others never get out of their own way. So I'd love to talk about what are the traits you see in a student that's gone from zero to big things, and also the one that never got out of the starting block. Because I've had both, without a doubt. Any thoughts on that? Key characteristics?
Sure. I think students that I give information and books and podcasts and reference course material that say they're going to read it and they're going to do it typically don't.
Right.
When they're in the course and, they're a coaching student and I'm holding their feet to the fire and saying, this is what you're going to do this next week. Here's how we're going to chunk it. Here's the step-by-step. They're actually taking action so they actually get results. If they, join and they're too busy and they don't have time over and over and over again, then I can tell pretty quickly that they're not going to make the time. So, time is a reality that we only have so much of, but we can also make a lot of excuses for our time. And so, the reason for our success, Michael, and I know for me personally, is because despite the fact that I didn't have time, working, school, my kids in school, husband's job that we were, his new business that we were running, rental properties, we were always busy. But I made no excuses with time. I said, if I can turn on the news for 30 minutes, I can compress that by looking at my phone or the internet to see what are the headlines for 5 minutes and spend 25 minutes looking for deals. If I can take an hour shower, I can 2 days a week not blow dry my hair for an hour, let my hair go natural, and 2 days a week spend an hour looking for deals. When my kids are in bed, one night a week, maybe I get 6 hours of sleep instead of 7.
Exactly.
I'm going to get 6 hours of sleep and I'm going to find the time. So I think what sets us apart, successful people in general, is you have a drive and a determination that says, this is my goal and I'm going to do whatever it takes to get there. I'm not going to make excuses for my time, but I'm going to block it in and I'm going to make the time and sacrifice something else that's less important to me than what my goal is. But so many people that want to get started in real estate, they think, oh, people make money in real estate. It's a good idea. As soon as they start and they don't get very far, or it's not fun, which it never is when you're starting to learn something, you might be excited, but then you do it and it's harder than you think, or you can't find deals, you get disappointed and you flounder. Your why has to be very strong and you have to be extremely determined, make no excuses, and make the time to put in the work to get it done. And it's that easy. Those that flounder, it's because they don't really want it and they're not willing to make the sacrifices to get it with consistency.
Yeah, I see the same thing out there. Another trait I see on occasion is the person kind of trying to press me for the shortcut. Or, no, you don't get it. I'm different. I want to do it faster. And again, the secret to what we teach and help people with and what we have both done is little blocks of time over consistent duration. This is not a shortcut. There's not some magic algorithm or artificial intelligence or whatever you want to call it that you can unlock that does this. You've got to do the work. And I am probably most annoyed by the people that come in, they get the course or whatever, and then they go, okay, I don't have 90 days. I need to do it in 9 days. I'm like, you can't, right? Having a baby, as you're a mom of 3, it takes what it takes, right? Just because you want it done in 30 days, it doesn't work that way. Is that fair?
Very fair. Yeah. And just so that one of them doesn't see this, I actually have 4
Oh,
kiddos. So
4.
I've
I'm
been
sorry.
through a long, process of 40 months of my life, almost pregnant. But yeah, it takes time. The only way to shortcut it is you already have a lot of money and you can passively invest in a deal, look at the deal and go, this is a good return and I'm invested.
Yeah, that's true.
But
If you
even
have
then you shouldn't shortcut,
yeah,
Um,
then you're looking at someone else's skill. That's fair, but
Exactly.
that's
If
not most
you
people.
want to buy your rentals and you
Yeah.
want to create your own nest egg and your
Yep.
own, business, then you have to put in the time just like anything else. You don't learn to do anything
Yeah.
in a day.
Yeah, folks, again, real estate investing can and will change your life. Both Anna and I are examples of that. We both come from very humble beginnings and it's changed our lives forever and our families' lives, right? It's generational at this point. But it all starts with that. And the beauty of real estate investing is, and why I think everybody doesn't do it is it takes a long time to get that momentum going,
Oh,
right? Pushing a rock or a stone or whatever. But boy, once that rock gets moving, it actually becomes easier,
yes. And
right?
that's the key is having the grit and the determination in the early years,
Yeah.
okay, because it can take years to not give up, to jump
Yes.
over the hurdles and to realize that you're playing a long game and it's a marathon and it's not a sprint. And there's so many times when I gave up a little right
Yeah.
before the finish line. And then I'm like, why did I do that if I would have just kept pushing? Or the market changes and you have a major recession, like what
Yeah.
happened to me in '09. I mean, suddenly my plans didn't work anymore. I had to figure out a different way to do it. And
Yeah.
it took me years where I thought I was the same way. When I had my first baby, I'm like, I'm going to get home with him. I'm going to flip 2 houses a year
Yeah.
and replace a 6-figure income
Yeah.
because it looked so easy on TV.
Oh, yeah.
So when it didn't happen the first time, my husband's like, we're not doing this again,
Yeah.
and it takes a long time. So it took me years to, really create financial freedom.
Yeah.
But I never would have been able to realize the blessing of what I have today, true financial freedom, true freedom of my time, if I had given up in year 1 or 2 or 5 or 7 when it was hard and when I
Yeah.
was impatient. So that,
Yeah.
that's the key is know what you want, go for it until you get it, no
Yeah.
matter how long it takes. Just keep staying in the game.
Yeah. There's a couple of days that I can still close my eyes and remember. And one of them, I think we've talked about it before, but I'll do it again, is I remember breaking down, like crying on the way back from yet another housewarming party where one of my employees bought a nice house, right? Better than mine. It was like year 8 of our thing. We had probably 80 or 90 units by then. And I remember breaking down going, honey, I don't know. I don't know if we're going to get there. It was so long. And by then we were in the recession, right? So our net worth was taking a hit. Cash flow was up, but we kept buying. So we never saw anything.
Yeah.
I remember that day. I had to pull over on the way home, and that's never happened before. And just have a moment. It'll be rough. It tests you and I. I mean, that was not a good day, but I'm certainly glad we kept moving forward. It did buy a big house.
Yeah, yeah. And that's the key. Both of us had the same thing, making sacrifices personally. You have to personally, financially, of your time, of your money, of your lifestyle,
Yeah.
while you build something that's going to be, greater in the future. And yeah, I had a few of those breakdown moments where I'm like, this is too hard. I can't do it anymore. I can't work all these hours and, just keep going. And, the last time that I had one of these, big moments, I got out of it much faster, but I took a little break. I dusted myself off. I got some, downtime and refocused, here's my dream. This is what I want. How can I do it, in a less stressful way?
Yeah.
And I learned over time, and I think, I hope to leave your listeners with this as well, is when you get in the mud, it's okay, but don't wallow around in it. You don't have to stay in it and get muddier and muddier and muddier in the despair of this isn't working. I'm too dirty. It's not getting me where I want to go. So, you'll get down, but being able to pull yourself up and say, okay, I've had my moment. Now, how am I going to fix it? What's the solution? How am I going to get creative to reach my goals and jump over these hurdles because I'm that much closer to just keep going. So, that's key.
Yeah. And just to I don't know that I've ever shared the second part of this story. So how I got out of this, that really rough moment was right? Olivia was with me. And you know, first off, she made it. She's like, "Do you want me to drive?" I'm like, "No, just give me a minute. I'll finish the drive home." But she was there for me, right? Supportive. I was very lucky to have a partner that when I was down, she was up, and vice versa. But what we did is we went home. Like within 30 minutes, we were looking at what we had accomplished, right? I don't know about her, I should say. I at the time was never, I felt like I didn't have time to look back, right? I'm in year 8, where call it 90 units. I kept looking. My deal was always the next deal, the next deal. I had to take a moment and appreciate where we were. And it was only that realization of what we had created, real numbers, that I was like, oh, you know, we're going to be okay, right? We could stop today and be okay. But that if you don't take time to inventory where you are and how far you've come, it can really hurt. I was at a very dangerous point. If I didn't take that moment to breathe and decompress, it could have cycled into a bad spot. So that was very helpful. And I tell people to do that. Appreciate where you are. Celebrate. You write your first offer, celebrate. It doesn't have to be huge, but celebrate.
Right? Yes.
So
after every major deal, I celebrate in some way.
Yes.
I'll let myself go get a pedicure, go out to eat for a nice dinner, just do something to say, you know what, I've made it closer to my dreams. I've made it closer to my goals. This is something to be excited about, and, you know, to celebrate that I made it through the hurdles, you know, involved in every deal as well. I think especially because you said something, Michael, you weren't living off that cash flow. You kept reinvesting it. And so you are like, and I was the same way, like we're still living check to check, check to check. And when are we going to get ahead? And when am I going to have enough income that it's that number? And suddenly, you know, I went to a new bank because my bank tapped me out right when I was in the middle of growing. I'm like, oh no, now I got to go to another bank. And, you know, it didn't have 2 years of consistent tax returns because they're all growing every year. And I thought, this is not going to be good. And I did my personal financial statement. I hadn't had to do one in years because my bank just let me, they just rubber stamped everything. And when I looked at my personal financial statement after crying that my bank was tapping me out, how am I going to keep growing? I was like, oh my goodness, look at our net worth. It's big.
Same,
it's like, it's 7 figures. And I'm like, how is this possible when we still live like everyone else?
Exactly.
Check to check. And it was this wake up moment that I was only really looking at the cash flow in that number and not really paying attention to the increase in the net worth.
Exactly.
And I'm like, honey, I could just sell 2 of these properties and wipe out everything that we need on the debt to have the number that we need, and then buy 1 more property and we're done. So, you know, done for that phase. But it is. It's like you've got to celebrate and you got to see where you are. And if you do make those sacrifices and keep growing and, you know, check to check, it will be worth it eventually. And if it gets too much, then take some time for a little bit and say, okay, I'm going to celebrate with something bigger. Maybe pull off the gas a little bit to relax a little bit if you need to, if you need that mental time. And then pick back up and do it again, you know. But it is important to celebrate and to realize your progress, because it's what keeps you going.
I feel so much better because, again, it was the same thing, right? We looked at our financial statement when I got home after breaking down, and I'm like, oh, that's a big ass number. I could just sell all of it and not have to work for several decades. I feel better now.
Yeah. But we get so, when you're in the middle of hard, and you have deals that are going wrong and fires and, you know,
break-ins and all this stuff. It's just,
you know, and then the economy collapses or people aren't paying rent. It's like, okay,
recession.
What's the big picture? And, you know, big picture is progress every day. Progress every day. You can't control you can't control everything, but you can control continuing to go. Picking up, you know, dusting off the feet, pulling up your bootstraps, taking the next step the next day, and celebrating small wins, and just keep at it. And it's amazing how hard it is in the beginning. And how, like you said, suddenly, like, wow, this 10 years of hard work is like the next year, you know, almost surpassing in a year or two what took you 10 years to do. Because it just snowballs, you know, so keep at it.
Keep at it. We're going to leave it there. I think that's a great way to, you know, keep at it is the right strategy. Anna, this has been a lot of fun. Thank you very much for giving us some time.
You're so welcome. Have a great day.
You too.